Here's me reading portions of Chapter 6 of William Kennedy's novel Ironweed at the 40th anniversary celebration at Albany Distilling Company on November 1st, 2023.
Change of pace, hard to hit. Get a baseball, I'll show you how to hold it for an in-shoot. And Daniel ran into the kitchen, then the pantry, and emerged with a ball and glove, which he handed to Francis. The glove was much too small for Francis's hand, but he put a few fingers inside it, and he held the ball in his right hand, studied its seams. Then he gripped it with his thumb and 1.5 of his fingers. "What happened to your finger?" Daniel asked. "Me and it parted company too, sort of an accident." "Does that make any difference, throwing an in-shoot?" "Sure does, but not to me. I don't throw no more at all. Never was a pitcher, you know, but talked with plenty of them. Walter Johnson was my buddy. You know him, the big train?" The boy shook his head. "Doesn't matter, but he taught me how it was done and I ain't forgot. Put your first 2 fingers right on the seams, like this, and then you snap your wrist out, like this. And if you're a righty, are you a righty?" And the boy nodded. "Then the ball's got to dance a little turnaround jig and head right inside of the batter's belly button, assuming, of course, that he's a righty too. You following me?" And the boy nodded again. "Now the trick is you got to throw the opposite of the out curve, which is like this." And he snapped his wrist clockwise. "You got to do it like this." And he snapped his wrist counterclockwise again. And then he had the boy try it both ways and patted him on the back. "That's how it's done," he said. "You get so you can do it, the batter's going to think you've got a little animal inside that ball flying it like an airplane." "Let's go outside and try it," Daniel said. "I'll get another glove." "Glove," said Francis, and he turned to Annie. "By some fluke, you still got my old glove stuck away somewhere in the house? That possible, Annie?" "There's a whole trunk of your things in the attic," she said. "It might be there." "It is," said Daniel. "I know it is. I saw it. I'll get it." "You will not," Annie said. "That trunk is none of your affair." "But I already seen it. There's a pair of spikes too, and clothes and newspapers and old pictures." "All that," Francis said to Annie. "You saved it." "You had no business in that trunk," Annie said. "Then Billy and I looked at the pictures and the clippings one day," Daniel said. "Billy looked just as much as I did. He's in lots of them," and he pointed at his grandfather. "Maybe you'd want to have a look at what's there," Annie said to Francis. "Could be. Might find me a new shoelace." Annie led him up the stairs, Daniel already far ahead of them. They heard the boy saying, "Get up, Billy, Grandpa's here." And when they reached the 2nd floor, Billy was standing in the doorway of his room, in his robe and white socks, disheveled and only half awake. "Hey, Billy, how you getting on?" Francis said. "Hey," said Billy, "you made it." "Yep. I would have bet against it happening. You'd have lost. Brought a turkey, too, like I said." "A turkey? Yeah? We're having it for dinner," Annie said. "I'm supposed to be downtown tonight," Billy said. "I just told Martin I'd meet him." "Call him back," Annie said. "He'll understand." "Red Tom Fitzsimmons and Martin both called to tell me things are all right again on Broadway. You know, I told you I had trouble with the McCalls," Billy said to his father. "I remember. I wouldn't do all they wanted and they marked me lousy. Couldn't gamble, couldn't even get a drink on Broadway." "I read that story Martin wrote," Francis said. "Called you a magician." "Martin's full of malarkey. I didn't do diddly. I just mentioned Newark to them, and it turns out that's where they trapped some of the kidnap gang." "You did something then," Francis said. "Mentioned in Newark was something. Who told you to mention it to?" "Bindi. But I never knew those guys were in Newark, or I wouldn't have said anything. I could never rat on anybody."